Topical.
Please give it up for Joe and Vivienne. Woo! Yeah. I've only just written this speech, so I'm going to read it. And what I decided to do was to give an overview of where we are now, the danger we are in, and what we face. I wanted to give a perspective, because you will never get this perspective from the press. And so I worked it out. Now then, walking backwards, of course, we know we're here for walking backwards. We know why. Climate change is getting worse. Governments aren't doing anything about it. They pretend they will one day control it. Meanwhile, this government does nothing, and Germany does a little bit, and things get worse and worse. So they're all caught up in the rotten financial system. This is the problem. Reflex action. It's got to be good for business. They can't think any further than that. They are morons. And the rotten financial system is an abusive system. It depends on fracking fuel. It depends on fossil fuels and selling arms. Anyway, and so of course we're against fracking. That's why we're here. But I just want to place that in the overview, because right now, this is serious. Governments are preparing for a world of climate change of plus 5 degrees, where billions will die. They're actually preparing for it, just in case they can't control it, which they've no intention of doing. So, what you see in London is a moon station. They're actually putting up all these flats that will stay empty. They're just for investors. When the world gets hotter and hotter, those investors will be able to live there. What's going on? This noise. It sounds like somebody laughing. So let's all laugh. Anyway, so that's what it's going to be. It's going to be a town where only the rich can live, where only the rich can live, where only the rich can get health care, and everybody else is dead. Of course they'll die. How can they die? How can they live without everybody else? But this is what they're doing. Previous speakers have said they see no reason in it. There is no reason. They are idiots, but that is what they are doing. They are reflex action. That's who they are. We've got to stop them. We've got to fight everything the government does, because everything the government does is bad. Fracking is one of those things. We've got to fight everything and get other people to join us. Anyway, so the only solution to this is something that would be very, very easy. It is a green economy. Yay! With a green economy, everybody would be rich. Yay. You would have a fair distribution of wealth. It would be a free market economy, but we would all have use of the land. It would not belong to other people. Today, you know what's happening with this rotten economy. Everybody's trying to get on the housing ladder. That's your life. There's nothing left. It's getting worse and worse. Anyway, so I want to tell you that a green economy is a world where you would have culture, not consumption. And true culture gives luxury. We would have luxury, we would have beautiful things. and we could all have access to them. And in fact, what would happen is we would really get liberty, equality and fraternity. We would get it. Thank you.
Good sign. That was good stuff. I just wasn't sure when I did it, where to stop and where to stop, and I was like, oh no, it's really
The environmental movement celebrated a campaign victory when David Cameron made a promise that the proposed new runway at Heathrow would not go ahead. There was even a judicial review that found that the government's plans for a new runway were untenable on the grounds that its considerations on the economy, the impact it would have on the economy and the climate lacked credibility. A judicial review found it untenable. David Cameron was even so sure of this promise that he put it into his election manifesto and was voted in 2010 on the promise that there would be no new runway, no ifs, no buts. 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 No new runway.
I think it's back again. Okay. And yet, 5 years later, a so-called independent report commissioned by David Cameron to look into not whether there should be a new runway, but where that new runway should be. That report
there was a report that was commissioned by Cameron not to look into whether there should be a new runway, but where that new runway should be. Even though this is going against all of our climate change commitments. They like to tell us that we are at a capacity crisis. It's simply not true. People think we need more business flights. It's simply not true. People are even concerned that this will stop the public from taking their annual holiday. It's simply not true. The real fact is that it's a wealthy minority who are driving this need for airport expansion. Research shows us that 15% of the UK population are responsible for taking 70% of the flights. And we know that this is a wealthy minority. We also know that 54% of the UK population don't even fly in any given year. This is about serving the needs of a wealthy minority, friends of Cameron and his cronies, who are taking frequent flying to short-haul destinations, binge flying, leisurely flights. This has nothing to do with business and this has nothing to do with the economy. The real fact is that aviation is the fastest growing source of carbon emissions globally. And yet, it's exempt from fuel tax globally. It's exempt from the climate targets that were set out in the Paris Agreement just recently at the COP21. And it's even exempt from our own targets laid out in the Climate Change Act 2008, which means that by 2050, if we don't stop aviation expansion, our entire carbon budget will be taken up by the aviation industry by 2050. This is what David Cameron is pushing for. 2 weeks after the report recommended Heathrow Airport, 13 of us decided to take direct action. Local communities and national campaigners had done everything they could, and this was what we felt we needed to do. We occupied the runway of Heathrow Airport for 6 hours and stopped 25 flights. They even tried to send us to prison. But people power ensured that that didn't happen. We were there, we did this to remind Cameron of the election promise that he is now going backwards on. That promise to have no new runway. Since our action, 4 Tory councils have threatened to sue Cameron and the government if they go ahead with a new runway at Heathrow. Zach Goldsmith has even threatened to step down from his position as MP if they go ahead with a new runway.
Yeah, chance of that happening. Yeah, you think he's going to do that?
But the government has moved the decision to where to, like, Heathrow's been recommended, now the government needs to make a decision, and they've moved that decision until after the EU referendum, because they don't want to muddy their election waters. This is a critical moment for people power. We stopped the new runway at Heathrow, and we can stop a new runway anywhere in the UK. All it takes is people power to stand together, united, and to say no more. No ifs, no buts,
No new runways!
No new runways, no ifs, no buts. No new runways, no ifs, no buts. No new runways, no ifs, no buts. No new runways, no ifs, no buts.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's really wonderful to march with you here today. But at the same time, it's kind of disheartening to stand right here in front of the Department for Health, the body charged with improving and protecting the nation's health, and to know that just round the corner, the Department for Transport is spending billions of pounds of our money on transport that turbocharges climate change and actively undermines our health. The government road investment strategy has earmarked £15 billion on building new roads. I'll say that again, £15 billion. On dual carriages that destroy ancient woodland, on motorways that choke our air, on new roads that clog our children's lungs, deepening and this car dependency. And just this week, the Welsh Government has pushed forward with plans to extend the M4, the Gwent Levels. I don't know if anyone here knows the Gwent Levels, but it's an amazing habitat with otters, with dragonflies, 4 sites of special scientific interest. And we're going to see 15 miles of new motorway bulldozed through this ancient marshland. The government has not learned. New roads create new traffic. New roads create new traffic, and they take us further and further from targets on reducing CO2 emissions and tackling climate change. Here in London, we're in the 5th richest city in the world, and we have air pollution that is worse than anywhere in Europe. And we're not on track to have that meets air quality standards until 2025. So that means that a child born today will be 9 years old before they have air that is fit to breathe. I think that is a disgrace. Not least in the last 6 years, we've seen £78 million cut from local authority bus funding. The results have been catastrophic. A bonfire of the buses. At Campaign for Better Transport, we see buses as a really central part of our climate change strategy. A single double-decker bus can take 75 cars off the road, but more than 1 in 5 bus routes have been cut back since 2016, and tens of thousands of people have been left cut off from the transport that used to connect them to work, connect them to healthcare, and connect them to friends and family. And let's not forget the health impacts of loneliness. Research tells us that loneliness is equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day, and that's what bus cuts are doing to our towns and villages. People left trapped at home with no option but the car, stuck in front of the telly because there's no local bus anymore. Billions of pounds for road building, while bus services in this country are cut and cut and cut. While cycling and walking are starved of funds. How dare they tell us that when it comes to local bus services, we need to tighten our belts. But when it comes to road building and motorways, there are pounds and pounds and pounds to splash the cash. Austerity for bus passengers, extravagance for road builders. Friends, we face a crisis of climate change, a crisis of air pollution. We need to stop putting the needs of communities ahead of the needs of commerce, to invest in buses on our roads, in rail that everyone can afford. But clean air, quality of life, it's our heart of transport. Thank you.
Thank you, you guys are fantastic. Thank you for being here. We may have been walking backwards down Whitehall, but they're the ones who don't know where they're going. We're the ones who want to take our country into a zero-carbon future, and they're the ones who want to frack under our national parks. Well, you can't. They want to tell us you can get there by cutting funding for warm homes and insulation and solar power. You cannot get to a zero-carbon future, do you? They want to tell us you can build new runways and keep driving diesel buses without worrying about the toxic air pollution that's killing 40,000 and more people every year. Well, you bloody well can't. There are times when I'm happy that this government is going backwards. I was delighted when they did a U-turn and said they would accept child refugees from Europe. That was going backwards in the right direction. I was delighted when they went backwards and did a U-turn on forcing all schools to become academies. That was going backwards in the right direction. But now we need this government to start going forwards on climate change. Paris was great, the signing ceremony in New York was superb, but bits of paper do not stop greenhouse gas emissions. Policies do. We need an end to unabated coal. We need support for CCS. We need more wind turbines and solar panels. We need low carbon vehicles, ultra low emission zones. We need a government that is prepared to think further than the next election and to legislate for a zero carbon future. 10 days ago, for the first time ever in the UK, we had more energy generated by solar than by coal across the entire day. That's the future we want. And today we have 5 gigawatts, 20% of our energy being generated at this moment by solar power. That's the future that we want. Today, we turned our backs on Parliament and walked backwards down Whitehall because our government is turning its back on the people, turning its back on our future. But we will walk forward together. We will create a sustainable, zero carbon future because we know something that they have yet to understand. A sustainable future is the only chance that we have to have a future at all. Thank you for being here. Thank you for caring. Thank you. You're fantastic.